And I forgot my book, so I don't remember the rest. But so thank you all for coming. All right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayana Namaskritya.
Narayana Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottama.
Naram Chaiva Narottama.
Devam Saraswatam Vyasa.
Devam Saraswatam Vyasam.
Tato Jayam Hridayat.
Tato Jayam Hridayat.
Nasta Preshu Amatreshu.
Nasta Preshu Amatreshu.
Nityam Bhagavati Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttama Shloke. Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, and come on, say it with me.
Very means of conquest. First time Srimad Bhagavatam is a very means of conquest. Much offers respectful.
Obeisances on the personality of Godhead who is. Okay. Well, you got to say it slower if you want.
I'm sure the Asi if you want.
By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by the rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. By loving service unto the personality of Godhead, established in the heart as an irrevocable fact. Okay. Yes. Very nice. All right. So today today is November 16th, 2025, and we are reading Canto 4, Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 30, Activities of the Prachetas, and we'll be doing verse 33. Yavate Mayaya Sprishta.
Yavate Mayaya Sprishta.
Brahmamaiha Karmavi.
Brahmamaiha Karmavi.
Tavad Bhavat Prasanganam.
Tavad Bhavat Prasanganam.
Sangasano Bhave Bhave.
Sangasyana Bhave Bhave.
Yavate Mayaya Sprishta
Yavate Maya Sprishna
Brahmamayi Karmavi
Brahmamaya Karmati
Bhavat Bhavat Prasanganam
Bhavat Prasanganam
Sangasya no Bhave Bhave
Sangasya no Bhave Bhave
Yavate Mayaya Sprishta
Yavate Maya Sprishna
Brahmamayi Karmavi
Brahmamaya Karmati
Bhavat Bhavat Prasanganam
Bhavat Prasanganam
Sangasya no Bhave Bhave
Sangasya no Bhave Bhave
Yavate Maya Sprishta
Yavate Mayaya Sprishta
Brahma Karmavati
Brahmamayiha Karmavi
Bhavat Prasangana
Bhavat Bhavat Prasanganam
Sangatya no Bhave Bhave
Sangasya no Bhave Bhave
Yavate Maya Sprishta
Yavate Mayaya Sprishta
Ramama Iha Karmave
Brahmamayiha Karmavi
Bhavad Prasangana
Bhavat Bhavat Prasanganam
Sangasya no Bhave Bhave
Sangasya no Bhave Bhave
Yavate Maya Sprishta
Yavate Mayaya Sprishta
Brahma Iha Karmavi
Brahmamayiha Karmavi
Bhavad Bhavat Prasangana
Bhavat Bhavat Prasanganam
Sangasya no Bhave Bhave
Sangasya no Bhave Bhave. Anyone else? Yavate Mayaya Sprishta Brahmamayiha Karmavi Bhavat Bhavat Prasanganam Sangasya no Bhave Bhave. Okay, word for word. Yavat, as long as.
long as
Te, your. Mayaya,
Maya
by the illusory energy.
illusory energy
Sprishta,
Krishna
contaminated.
contaminated
Brahmamaha,
Brahma
we wander. Iha,
Yaha
in this material world.
this material world
Karma be,
Karmavati
by the reaction of fruitive activities.
by the reaction of fruit activities
Tavat,
Tavat
so long.
so long
Bhavat prasanganam,
Bhavat Prasanganam
of your loving devotees.
of your loving devotees
Sangha,
Sangha
association.
association
Syat,
Syat
let there be.
let there be
Naha,
Naha
our.
our
Bhave, bhave,
Bhave Bhave
in every species of life.
every species of life.
Okay, translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Dear Lord, as long as we have to remain within this material world due to our material contamination and wander from one type of body to another and from one planet to another, we pray that we may associate with those who are engaged in discussing their pastimes. We pray for this benediction, life after life, in different bodily forms and on different planets. Please repeat. Dear Lord,
Dear Lord,
as long as we have to remain within this material world
as long as we have to remain within this material world
due to our material contamination
due to material contamination
and wander from one type of body to another
and wander from one type of body to another
and from one planet to another,
and from one planet to another,
we pray that we may associate
we pray that we may associate
with those who are engaged
with those who are engaged
in discussing your pastimes.
in discussing pastime.
We pray for this benediction,
We pray for this benediction,
life after life,
life after life,
in different bodily forms
in different bodily forms
and on different planets.
and on different planets.
Purport. This is the best benediction that a devotee can ask of the Supreme Lord. This is also confirmed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Stane Stiha Shrutikatam Tanu Ran Mano Bihi. Bhagavatam 10:14-3. One may be in one position or another according to destiny, but in any case, one must continue to hear about the activities and pastimes of the Supreme Lord, regardless of circumstances. A pure devotee does not pray for liberation or for cessation of the cycle of birth and death, because he does not consider that important. The most important thing for a devotee is getting a chance to hear about the pastimes and glories of the Lord. The devotees who engage in the service of the Lord in this world will have the same opportunity in the spiritual world also. Thus, for a devotee, everything is in the spiritual world, for as long as he can hear about the pastimes of the Lord, or wherever he can chant, the Lord is personally present. Tatra tishtami narada yatra gayanti mad bhakta. When pure devotees assemble to chant, hear and talk about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the place where they assemble becomes Vaikuntha. For the devotee, there is no need to pray to the Lord for transferal to the Vaikuntha world. A pure devotee can create Vaikuntha or Vrindavan anywhere simply by chanting the glories of the Lord without offense. The Prachetas pray for an opportunity to hear the glories of the Lord in every form of life. Bhave bhave. A living entity transmigrates from one body to another. The devotee is not particularly eager to stop this process. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prays, Mama Janmani Jamnishvare Bhavad Bhaktira Haikuti Tvaye. My dear Lord, life after life, may I be fixed in your pure devotional service. Out of humility, a devotee considers himself unfit to be transferred to the spiritual world. He always thinks himself contaminated by the modes of material nature. Nor is there any need for a devotee to ask to be freed from the modes of material nature. Devotional service itself is in the transcendental position. Therefore, there is no question of asking for this special facility. The conclusion is that a pure devotee is not anxious to stop the repetition of birth and death, but is always eager to associate with other devotees who are engaged in chanting and hearing about the glories of the Lord. Om Jnanam Rajasakharanjana Shalakaya Chakramilitam Yena Jasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakaram Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tupadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagratatam Sahagana Raganatamatam Tam Sajivam Savaditam Savatitam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Krishna Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabando Chikapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostite Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavadeshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakapatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. All right, so it's a very sweet verse, one that we could all aspire to being sincerely meaning one day, right? And so in this verse, so we see the Prachetas, they've been meditating for 10,000 years under the water, and suddenly they finally get to see the Lord face to face. And so, you know, if you have ever thought about what will I do when I see the Lord face to face, you know, well, this is a good thing to maybe emulate, right? So they finally see the Lord face to face, and they ask him for the greatest benediction that there is, and that is to always be in the association of devotees and always hear Krishna's pastimes. So this verse also points out that we are in this material world due to our material contamination, right? And that's what keeps us coming back lifetime after lifetime, is that material contamination that we have. And we've lived in so many bodies and so many planets. And so, sometimes people will say like, oh yes, I think I'm really an alien from some other planet. Well, yes. Okay. Well, me too. You also, right? Him too. Yes. Right. And so that's nothing extraordinary, right? Because we've lived, billions of lifetimes in so many bodies, in so many places. It said that we've been through every species of life that there is, right? And so this is really clear in the story of Chitraketu. And when the king Chitraketu, he wanted to have a son, and then, a sage gave him the boon to have this son, but said it's going to be the cause of your greatest lamentation, your greatest joy. It's not going to be all good. And he says, I want to do it anyway. So he has the son, and then the son ends up dying. He ends up getting killed by the king's other wives, who were jealous of the attention that the king was paying to the mother of his son, and so they killed him. And the whole palace is just grieving. Even the ladies that killed him, they're grieving too, because they realize how upset their husband is, right? And so then when Narada Muni and the sage Angira comes back, they use their mystic powers to bring the son back from the dead, right? They bring him back from the dead. And he says some pretty amazing stuff that's a little bit harsh. And so I wanted to read that. I know we've all heard it, but I really love it. So this is in the 6th canto. You can find this story. So by the mystic power of Narada Muni, the living entity re-entered his dead body for a short time, and he spoke in reply to Narada Muni's request. He said, according to the results of my fruitive activities, I, the living being, transmigrate from one body to another, sometimes going to the species of the demigods, sometimes to the species of the lower animals, and sometimes among the vegetables. I think that was probably my past life, right? I was a carrot. I don't know. And sometimes to the human species. Therefore, in which birth were these my mother and father? No one is actually my mother and father. How can I accept these two people as my parents? I mean, that's just amazing. That's so, that would be really painful to hear from your child, right? You're grieving because they passed away, and then he comes back and he's just kind of like, who are you again? Right? Meanwhile, you've dedicated your whole life to, raising that child. And so that really shows us exactly what's mentioned in this verse, how we're going from body to body, from planet to planet, right? And so most people, so let's see, I want to read a little more of that purport because he says such amazing stuff. King Chitraketu's son, he says, even though one living entity becomes connected with another because of a relationship based on bodies that are perishable, the living entity is eternal. And actually, the body that is born or lost, it is the body that is born or lost, not the living entity. One should not accept the living entity takes birth or dies. The living being actually has no relationship with so-called fathers and mothers. As long as he appears as the son of a certain father and mother as a result of his past fruitive activities, he has a connection with the body given by that father and mother. And thus he falsely accepts himself as their son and acts affectionately. After he dies, however, the relationship is finished. And under these circumstances, one should not be falsely involved with jubilation and lamentation. And so that's what most people are doing, is most people are focusing on that temporary bodily connection. And so, and what this causes is actually misery. And then it causes us to keep coming back over and over and over again, right? We're just coming back because of that material contamination, that attachment that we have to the body, which really has very little to do with us, our actual selves. And so, yeah, because people are focusing on this all these temporary things like my son or my mother or my brother or my friend or whatever it is. You're focusing on these temporary things, and it's causing you to have kind of misery, right? You know, how many relationships do you see, right? People say, oh, I love them so much. Oh, I'm so in love. And then, you know, a month later, all of a sudden you're like, I can't stand that guy, you know? And that's because you're focusing on this temporary thing, right? And a lot of times it brings us misery. And so that's why association and Krishna Katha, talking about Krishna, is so important, because those activities are actually eternal. Those are eternal activities, and they're purifying us. They're helping us get rid of that material contamination. And I think in the 80s, or maybe it was the early 90s, there was this like fitness guru, for all lack of a better word, and she had all these commercials on TV for like hours long, and it would say, "Stop the insanity." I don't know if anybody remembers those, but she would always say, "Stop the insanity of, you know, countless diet plans and all this stuff," you know. But I don't agree with her you know, reason for wanting to stop the insanity, but I agree with the sentiment is, yes, stop the insanity of focusing on these temporary things, and listening to Krishna's pastimes and associating with the devotees helps stop that insanity, right? Because we're eternal beings. And when we're acting on that temporary platform, that's insanity, right? Because actually we're eternal. And so, so in the spiritual world, we're still going to be talking about Krishna, right? I mean, if you look at the gopis, right? When Krishna is away, they're so sad in separation. They start sharing their favorite pastimes with one another, even kind of acting them out and everything. And so they're still talking about Krishna, you know, because this is our eternal activity, right? That's what the eternal activity of the soul is to love and serve Krishna. And so a pure devotee can be happy even if they're in hell, right? Whether they're in heaven or they're in hell, it doesn't really matter, because if he has association and Krishna's pastimes to hear, then he's in the spiritual world, because Krishna, the Lord, is absolute. His name is absolute. His form is absolute. And so wherever you say his name, wherever you see his form, that is the spiritual world, right? And so anywhere can be that spiritual world. So there's no need to change your situation. There's no need to change your ashram, your situation, or say, oh, if I'm making more money, you know, then I can really, you know, not be so worried about all these things, and I can really focus on my spiritual life, you know. But none of that's necessary, as long as you have association and Krishna's pastimes. Now, if you want to move closer to where more devotees are, you know, that's nice, you know, that would be good, because we can't do it alone, right? And that's the story of like Jadabharata, right? His downfall was that he thought he could do it alone, right? And so he was a very pious king, and he went to the forest to focus on his spiritual life and meditate and everything, and he didn't have any association. And so what was he doing? He was doing his spiritual duties, but then we know he came across a baby deer that had lost its mother, and he started taking care of that deer, and started getting so attached to that deer that instead he sort of started neglecting his spiritual activities. And so he ended up dying while thinking about the deer, because he was trying to find the deer. And then he became, in his next life, a deer. But thankfully, he was able to remember what happened. And that's because he didn't have the association of devotees. And so what did he do in his dear body? Do you remember?
Didn't he associate with the sadhus and like the yogis?
Yeah. And so in his dear body, he remembered, oh, I don't want to make that mistake again, right? So in his dear body, he went and he listened to hear what the sages were saying, right? And so there's some stories about these kind of things happening too, right? There's a story about a crocodile or an alligator that comes to a temple. I've seen a video of that, and the pujaris will feed him prasadam, and
Just passed away like
the alligator did, or the crocodile, whichever it is. Oh no. Well, I'm sad now. Well, maybe that's good though, because he hung out with the sages, so now he'll get a human birth and he can do it again. And then I heard there was I've seen videos of like cows dancing with the sadhus during kirtan, Okay, so anyway, and then what ended up happening after he left his dear body, he got a chance at a human birth. And so he's like, okay, I'm not messing this up. No. And so I'm just going to pretend like I'm kind of, mentally challenged, and then people will just leave me alone and I can, not get entangled in worldly affairs. And that worked. And so he one day was standing on the side of the road, and a king was coming by, and he needed another person to carry his palanquin. And so they said, go get that guy. And so I think we were just talking about this yesterday. Anyway, he was carrying the palanquin, not very good, because he's trying to avoid the ants. And when the king says, hey, wait, what's going on? Why is the palanquin shaking back and forth? Then he, Jadabart gave forth all this transcendental knowledge. And the king realized, wow, you are a realized soul. You're not just some dumb guy on the side of the road that has no knowledge, And the king actually became, took Jadabart as his teacher. So, okay. So we can't do it alone. And so much so, it's so important to have that association that it's even said that souls want to be born in Kali Yuga. This says this in the 11th canto. And so sometimes you might be tempted to think like, oh, well, if I was born in Satya Yuga, things would be much easier, right? There wouldn't be so many distractions. People wouldn't, have so many faults, things like that. But actually, many, many souls want to be born in Kali Yuga, including those that were from Satya Yuga. So this is what it says in the 5th chapter of the 11th canto. My dear king, the inhabitants of Satya Yuga and other ages eagerly desire to take birth in this age of Kali, since in this age there will be many devotees of the Supreme Lord Narayan. These devotees will appear in various places, but will be especially numerous in South India. O Master of Men, in the age of Kali, those persons who drink the waters of the holy rivers will almost all be pure-hearted devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. And then just a little bit of that purport says, the inhabitants of Satya Yuga are certainly aware of the conditions of Kali Yuga. They know that in Kali Yuga, the difficult material situation forces the living entity to take complete shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that the inhabitants of Kali Yuga therefore develop a high degree of love of Godhead. Therefore, although the inhabitants of Satya Yuga are far more sinless, truthful, and self-controlled than the people of other ages, they desire to take birth in Kali Yuga in order to taste pure love of Krishna. Without associating with the devotees of the Lord, no one can become an advanced devotee of the Lord. Therefore, since in Kali Yuga other Vedic processes collapse due to the unfavorable condition, and since the only authorized Vedic process is the devotional chanting of the Lord's holy name, which is available to everyone, there will undoubtedly be innumerable Vaishnavas or devotees of the Lord in this age. Birth in this age is very favorable for one who is eager to associate with the devotees. In fact, the Krishna consciousness movement is establishing authorized Vaishnava temples throughout the world so that in innumerable areas one may avail himself of association with pure Vaishnavas. Yeah, I mean, so it's pretty amazing because even though there's so many faults in this age, right? There's so many things going on that are distracting. We're very lucky that in this age, it's very simple. All we have to do is chant the holy name, right? And associate with one another and talk about Krishna's pastimes. And so we're so fortunate because in other ages, things were much more difficult. You had to most people I know can't even sit still for, an hour, let alone, hundreds of years, thousands of years to meditate, right? And so we're so fortunate that we live in this age. And I really like, when people are going through distress, it's really then that they're able to realize that they need to depend on the Lord, right? Because when things are going well, it's so easy to think, oh yes, I did this. I bought this nice house. I'm working hard to, provide for my family. But when you're in distress and you have no more facility left and you're like, there's nothing else I can do, it's at that time when a lot of people will turn to God finally, right? They'll turn to Krishna finally and say, I'm powerless in this situation. I can't do anything. I just have to have faith that you'll take care of me, right? And so sometimes I find myself, when I hear things are getting really bad, I find myself not cheering it on by any means, but thinking a little bit happily like, oh, maybe this will wake people up so that they understand that things are not going so well, and they need to figure out what is it that I can do to stop these things from happening, right? When you've exhausted every possibility, what possibility is there that's left? Turning to God, right? That's that famous saying, there's no atheists in a foxhole, right? Because in a foxhole, what do you have? You're stuck in a hole, you're getting rained on with bombs and bullets, and that's the only thing you can do is turn to God at that point, right? So yeah, by any means, I'm not like cheering on when bad things happen, but I'm thinking, gosh, maybe people will realize I need to turn to Krishna. So, okay, so sometimes, let's see how much time I have left. Yeah, and so here's a few more things about association. I really love these. So this says, even a moment's association with a pure devotee cannot be compared to being transferred to heavenly planets or even merging into the Brahman effulgence in complete liberation. For living entities who are destined to give up the body and die, association with pure devotees is the highest benediction. So that's from the 4th canto. This is the next verse, actually. We'll be reading this tomorrow, I guess. So, because association with the pure devotee is so wonderful because they actually help us become associating with Krishna, help us become closer to associating with Krishna. And so sometimes I think, we take this for granted because we are so lucky and we do have so many opportunities for association. It's easy to take this for granted. And sometimes you might think, oh, well, this person, this devotee is not very high level. Why should I hang out with them, right? Their realization is not very strong, or there's no good association around here, right? Right? Sometimes people think these things. I've heard them say it, but really, this is just our ego, right? This is our ego because. You guys laughing. Yeah. And this is just our ego. This is our ego talking, right? Oh, there's no good association, thereby implying that I myself am, worthy of the greatest association. But are you? Because if you're thinking, oh, there's no good association here, you should turn around and look at yourself and think, oh, am I being good association, right? And so, and even if you're all alone, right, and there's no devotees around, you still have Prabhupada's books, right? And you can associate with a pure devotee in that way, right? By reading Srila Prabhupada's books. And, if you have, there's a saying in the karmi world, right? If you have time to lean, you have time to clean, right? If you're working in a restaurant job and your boss sees you kind of leaning around, he says, oh, you should be cleaning, right? Well, same thing for us, though. If we have time to, go play sports, we have time to read. If we have time to, look at cat videos, you have time to read. I'm talking to myself on that one. And so, because we can associate with a pure devotee through Prabhupada's books, and so. Just remember, and I say this every time I talk about association. Association is also what we put into our eyes and our ears, right? And so if I'm sitting there scrolling cat videos and murder mystery makeup videos all day, that's who I'm associating with, right? That's what I'm associating with. It's not going to help me get closer to Krishna. In fact, it's going to completely distract me from those things. And so there's a lot of examples of this, but yeah, first I wanted to say sometimes people get hung up. I've been seeing this periodically where people get hung up on, proving ISKCON wrong. I see this a lot, right? Or saying, we don't have any pure devotees. We don't have pure devotees. Our gurus are not pure devotees. I've heard people say this. But the one thing I have to say is, are they getting people to chant the holy name, right? Because Lord Chaitanya himself, he tells us that in this age, there's actually no other way than chanting the holy name, right? And so what is ISKCON doing? Helping people to chant the holy name, helping people to improve their and deepen their chanting of the holy name. Is that what's going on? Is this, friend of mine or guru or whatever, helping me to chant better rounds, inspiring me to chant more rounds, inspiring me to chant deeper rounds, right? And this is what we should be thinking. And what I'm saying is what I'm saying to you is that helping you to chant better rounds. And we have to remember that Lord Chaitanya himself says that in this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way than chanting the holy name, right? So, yeah, we don't want to overcomplicate it, right? It's fine to have so much technical knowledge or have so much expansive knowledge of all the Vedas, but what is that knowledge doing? Is it facilitating your chanting of the holy name, right? And so that's what we should be thinking of. Instead, there's so many people outside of ISKCON that are just trying to tear it down and say, oh, well, there's this problem and that problem and this problem. Okay, but is there more? Not that we should ignore problems, that's not what I'm saying. But is there more people chanting holy name today than there was yesterday? And if that's the case, then we should keep doing it, So yeah, and then there's a few examples of association. There are the examples that we all know, Narada Muni, right? He, as a child, was in his previous life, he had been cursed to take like a human birth, and he was the son of a maidservant, and his mother took a job cleaning cleaning up and serving the sadhus. And so Narada Muni got to associate with those sadhus. And then he became Narada Muni, one of the greatest devotees of the Lord, right? All he does is travel around the universe, helping others to get closer to Krishna in some way. Maybe pushing events along so that they get closer to Krishna, right? The great instigator, right? Then we have Mrgari the hunter, right? Mrgari the hunter was a hunter that was very sadistic, hurting the animals, not killing them all the way. But through the association of Narada Muni, who told him, hey, it's probably not, at least kill them all the way, don't just leave them half dead. But through that association of Narada Muni, who instructed him in spiritual principles, he not only stopped hunting, but he became a great sadhu. And all the people in the village were happy to bring him food, right? Because Narada Muni said, look, there's a great sadhu sitting down by the river. Because the hunter's big concern was, how will I support my family, right? And Narada Muni told him, look, you just chant, and I'll see that your family's supported. And so when he told the villagers, look, there's a great sadhu over there, they started bringing him food. And then he had more food than he knew what to do with, right? Because he decided through that association with Narada Muni, he understood what the true position of his soul and the souls of those animals was. And then we have Prahlad, right? Little Prahlad at his demon school. And some of his classmates became devotees, right? Due to little Prahlad's preaching, because of their association with him. We have Dhruva, because of his association with Narada Muni. You're seeing a theme here, like Narada Muni, right? With his association with Narada Muni, he went from, wanting to see God simply for selfish reasons, to get that kingdom greater than his fathers and his grandfathers, to suddenly realizing, oh my gosh, no, this is the true treasure, seeing the Lord, right? Because of Narada Muni's association, he was able to get to that point. Because Narada Muni instructed him to chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, right? So, and then we have Haridas Thakur, the prostitute, right? The prostitute that was sent to corrupt him. And he said, oh, yes, of course, we will enjoy, just wait, let me finish my rounds, right? And he did that for, 3 days, I think. And by the time that third day came, she herself became a devotee, right? And ended up giving away all her things and shaving her head even and becoming his disciple, right? And that was such a short period of association, 3 days. And then we have Srila Prabhupada, right? Srila Prabhupada, who didn't even really get so much time with his spiritual master, but his spiritual master had told him twice, right, to go and preach in the West, right? He told him that first day he met him to go and preach in the West. And then Srila Prabhupada kept that in the back of his mind, right? And then ultimately he did it. And then again, his spiritual master told him in a letter right before he passed, in a letter he told Srila Prabhupada again to go preach in the West. And Srila Prabhupada did it. And so sometimes people say, oh, there's no good association, or I don't get enough association with my spiritual master, or, so many reasons. But really, it only takes that one moment, right? That one moment, and so many of us have more association than that. But that's all it takes. And so, yeah. So don't overcomplicate things. Is what we're doing facilitating yourself and others to chant more and better rounds? Chant the holy name more times and with more devotion? Then keep doing it. So I think I'll end there. If there's any comments or questions or anything. Yeah, Arjuna.
I was just wondering, and maybe we don't have any info on this,
but the king that you were talking about earlier that became like the deer and all that,
Oh, uh-huh.
that story, I always forget his name. But after he was a deer and he was pretending to be the crazy dude, I was kind of wondering because a lot of times crazy people talk about how they're a king and like all that stuff. Did he just ever go running around like saying, I'm a king and I did this and it took me away from Krishna? And people are just like, oh, that crazy dude.
Yeah.
What's
Well,
his thing?
I would just have you notice that he didn't say that. He didn't say any of those things,
No.
right? That's not what he did. That may have been what the story is, but he didn't go around saying, I'm a king. Oh, I'm a great, king. No, he didn't tell people that because he specifically was acting that way so that people would leave him alone. So if he's going around saying, I'm a great king, and he wants people to believe him, then
Well, no, not wanting people to believe him, but just wanting to look crazy to them.
yeah. Yeah, but he just kind of, and if somebody is doing that, then they want us to think they're crazy and they're doing that, well, they're succeeding, right? So we're giving them what they want.
Krishna facilitates.
Yeah.
Another question.
Okay, Amara?
There's a really nice sentence in the first paragraph of today's purport. Can you scroll down? Where Prabhupada is basically saying that the devotional service that we're performing now is what's preparing us for what we'll be doing in the spiritual world. The devotees who engage in the service of the Lord in this world will have the same opportunity in the spiritual world also. So that's just a very potent sentence.
Yeah, I know. I love that. It's because, these activities are eternal. So we're doing this now, and we're going to be doing that then too. Yeah, we're getting trained up now, and just that story of the gopis in separation from Krishna, right? And they're just kind of in ecstasy, talking about the pastimes, reenacting the pastimes, right? And they're in so much ecstasy. And, it's said that ecstasy in separation is actually like the greatest ecstasy, right? And there's a very, very, very mundane kind of example of this is if you talk to someone who has like a gambling addiction, they say it's not the winning that is, drives their addiction, that it's actually kind of the lead up to, the winning is just kind of like whatever, but it's this like anticipation, this feeling of like they might win, right? So that's what drives the addiction. And then when they win, it's just like, okay, whatever, but it's that feeling of, oh, maybe if I bet this, then I'll win, and then that's what drives that kind of anticipation, right? And so, although that's a very mundane example, like, the gopis, they have this kind of like, feeling, it's a stronger feeling when you're in separation, right? Because when you're around someone all the time, then maybe, you're not having that longing, right? It's just sweeter, right? That absence makes the heart grow fonder. So, Chandrika, you had something?
So if someone feels that they're not getting, the right association, or the association's not pure enough or whatever, wouldn't that be that, okay, that might mean that I need to get closer to Krishna and chant more sincerely. And when you are chanting sincerely, then Krishna would bring you the association that you need, or bring you to those that need association.
Yeah, Krishna is in control. And so if we're sincerely seeking him, right? He tells us in the Bhagavad Gita that to those who are sincere, he shows them the way by which they can come to him, right? And so perhaps in the form of good association, right? Yeah. Chaitanyeshwara Gaurangadas.
I listened to the whole class, half online though, so. Cool. So, one thing is that it was not Jada Bharat who became a deer, it was Bharat Maharaj. And then
Yeah,
he became
and he
Jada Bharat.
became Jadabar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the question or the point is that, like, what is association, Because, I mean, so many times we may have a sadhu come, but no one inquires. Like, no one speaks up in class or, and I, not criticizing, but just an observation of mine is that those communities that I've been to where you find devotees who are very fired up and advanced, the one similarity between all of them is that people are very eager to hear and they're very eager to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
And in Mayapur, in Kolkata, we were there and, Gurudev gave a class for about 4 hours, 4.5 hours. First hour was a class, 3 hours of questions.
Yeah.
And not one person got up. It was that, they were that fixed in hearing and asking questions. And then, the Russian yatra also, you see that they ask so many good questions. And it's a symptom of a devotee, even if they know the answer, like Suresh Prabhu always, he asks nice questions. I try to follow that footsteps and ask questions. So it's just to point out that, association doesn't just mean proxy. Mm-hmm. It means, inquiry, dadati prati guyati, guya makyati prichati, this revealing one's mind and hearing one's mind. I think it's an important element of association because sometimes, you said you can't do it alone. Mm-hmm. And sometimes even though, I'm with the devotees, but I'm still trying to do it all alone because I don't inquire. I don't go reveal my mind to devotees. I don't, I just struggle. And so then you see this kind of unsteady situation, whereas I've always found it, helpful just immediately to try to ask, try to associate, reveal my mind immediately to senior devotees. It's very helpful. So I just think that that's an important element of association, that it's not proxy. And in terms of, one more thing is in terms of, like people saying, oh, I don't have good enough association. We get the association we deserve. And Gurudev tells the story, of course, how he was, he was in Tennessee when he joined the movement, and he was with no devotees, but he opened up his house and he started preaching there. And he told, either Tamal Krishna Maharaj or one of those people from the Radha Damodar party, he said, I don't have any association, Maharaj. Maharaj said, you be the association. Mm-hmm. And so he still follows that instruction that be the association you want to have. Yeah, absolutely. Like, you're thinking like, I think I said that right. If you're thinking there's no good association here, well, then you need to look at yourself. Are you being the good association? And there was, what was the first part you talked about? Oh, asking questions. Yeah. So I think for a lot of people, they think, oh, I just don't know what to ask, I think for a lot of people that, but how you know what to ask is you have to read Srila Prabhupada's books, then you'll understand what questions to ask, right? So of course, yes, you can ask very basic questions, but I think for people that have been around for a while and they know kind of the basics, then they think, oh, well, I don't have any questions to ask. If you want to ask good questions, you got to read. Well, also it's like, even if you know the answers, it's still good to ask. Yeah. Like Arjuna, you think Maharaj Parikshit saw Krishna in the womb. He didn't have to ask any questions about Krishna. He was full pure devotee already, but he was actually asking for the benefit of everybody. Yeah. And so that's that kind of consciousness, because there's that verse, Satam prasangam mamavirya samburo bhavanti hritkarna rasayana kataha tajjosanat asvapavarga vartmani shraddha ratir bhaktir anukramishiti. This is Lord Kapila Devi saying that, Satam prasangam mamavirya samburo, that these talking about my pastimes and my activities in the association of devotees, when you're conversating about it, it gives pleasure to the ears and to the heart. It opens up the doors of liberation, and one develops shraddha, faith, rati, attachment, and bhakti, love for God.
And so it just seems like a very common theme in, people, communities and people who are advanced, that they engage in this, even though people may know answers. They want to we want to hear each other's realizations.
Yeah, and that even if you do know the answers, it helps deepen that understanding, right? And to understand the nuances of other person's perspectives on that same answer, right? So,
It's all relishable.
what?
It's all relishable.
Yeah. All right, I think we'll end here. Thank you so much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.